A billionaire confessed to killing 3 people, but nobody heard it for 2 years. Imagine being so rich, you could literally get away with anything. Now imagine accidentally confessing to multiple killings while talking to yourself in a bathroom. This is the insane true story of Robert Durst, the real estate heir who dismembered his neighbor, made his wife vanish into thin air, and executed his best friend. Then basically told on himself because he forgot his microphone was still on. In 1982, a beautiful young woman named Kathie Durst told her medical school friends something chilling. "If anything happens to me, don't let Bobby get away with it." 4 days later, she disappeared forever. Her husband Robert told police she took a train to Manhattan. Small problem, nobody ever saw her get on that train, or get off it, or exist anywhere, ever again. But when your family owns half of Manhattan's skyline, and you're worth hundreds of millions, police tend to believe your stories. Robert Durst came from real estate royalty. His family built Times Square. They owned skyscrapers that touched the clouds. When cops asked questions, Robert's army of lawyers shut them down faster than you can say billionaire privilege. For 18 years, Kathie's case went ice cold. Robert moved on, got married again, got divorced, lived his billionaire life. Then in 2000, investigators decided to take another look. They had one person they really wanted to talk to, Susan Berman, Kathie's best friend, who'd mysteriously become Robert's biggest defender after the disappearance. Susan had told everyone who'd listened that Kathie was unstable, that she probably ran off with some random guy. Convenient story from a convenient friend. But now, 2 decades later, Susan was ready to talk to police. She needed money, she was tired of keeping secrets, and she'd just told friends she was about to have a very interesting conversation with investigators. Christmas Eve, 2000. Susan's neighbors found her door wide open. She was face down in her Beverly Hills home, a single bullet in the back of her head. Execution style. Professional. The killer even sent a note to police with her address, like they wanted her found quickly. The handwriting would become very important later. Remember that detail. Robert had an alibi. He was in Northern California, he said. But here's the thing about Susan's death. She was killed exactly like a mob hit. And Susan's father? He was Davy Berman, a literal Las Vegas mob boss. She grew up knowing how professional killers worked. The irony? She died exactly the way her father's enemies used to die. After Susan's death, Robert lost it. He started wearing wigs and dresses, calling himself Dorothy, living in shabby apartments despite having millions in the bank. He fled to Galveston, Texas, a random beach town where nobody would look for a New York billionaire. He rented a $300 a month apartment and pretended to be a mute woman. His neighbor was Morris Black, a cranky 71-year-old who lived across the hall. They became unlikely friends, the secretive millionaire in drag and the grumpy old man. They watched movies together, played board games. Everything was weirdly normal until September 2001, when fishermen found something horrifying floating in Galveston Bay. It was a human torso. Then garbage bags started washing up, arms, legs, all the pieces of a person except one. The head was missing. Police traced the body parts back to Robert's apartment building. When they knocked on his door, they found a bloodbath. Blood on the floors, blood on the walls, blood that had leaked through the floorboards into the apartment below. Robert ran. Police caught him in Pennsylvania stealing a sandwich from a grocery store, with $38,000 cash in his car. Because nothing says innocent like shoplifting when you have 40 grand in your trunk. When they brought him back to Texas, he had the most insane story ready. Yes, he admitted, he cut up Morris Black. Yes, he dumped the body parts in the bay. But it was self-defense. Morris had broken into his apartment with a gun. They fought, the gun went off, and Morris died. So naturally, Robert did what any innocent person would do. He dismembered the body with a bow saw and went on a midnight boat ride to dispose of the evidence. His lawyer Dick DeGuerin was a Texas legend who'd never lost a case. The trial was a circus. Without Morris's head, nobody could prove how he died. The jury bought the self-defense story. Robert Durst, who admitted to chopping up a human being and throwing him in the ocean, walked free. He served 3 years for evidence tampering and was back on the streets. For the next decade, Robert lived like a ghost with a credit card. He bought property, walked around New York, acted like he hadn't left a trail of bodies across America. Then in 2010, Hollywood came calling. A movie called All Good Things, starring Ryan Gosling, was loosely based on Robert's life. Instead of hiding, Robert did something nobody expected. He called the director. Andrew Uretsky, who made the film, couldn't believe it. The possible killer wanted to talk. Robert agreed to be interviewed for a documentary series. For over 20 hours, he sat in front of cameras discussing the disappearances, the deaths, the dismemberment. He was confident, charming even. He thought he was controlling the narrative. But Uretsky's team had been doing their homework. They got their hands on old documents, including a letter Robert had written to Susan Berman years before her death. The envelope had her address written in block letters, with Beverly Hills misspelled as Beverly Hills. Then they found something that made their jaws drop. The anonymous note sent to police about Susan's body? Same handwriting, same block letters, same exact misspelling of Beverly Hills. They had him. When they showed Robert both documents during filming, he literally couldn't speak. He stammered, sweated, and finally mumbled that he couldn't tell the difference between the two writings. After that brutal interview, Robert excused himself to use the bathroom. He was still wearing his wireless microphone, alone in that tiny room, thinking nobody could hear him. Robert Durst had a conversation with himself that would destroy his life. He started muttering, arguing with himself like two different people lived in his head. "There it is. You're caught," he said. Then he burped. Then came the words that would echo through history. "What the hell did I do? Asterisk killed them all, of course, star dot." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was admitting he forgot to buy milk. The microphone caught every word. But here's the craziest part. The filmmakers sat on this confession for 2 years. They kept editing their show, adding dramatic music, making it perfect for television, while a confessed killer walked free. They didn't tell police until right before the finale was about to air in March 2015. The FBI was furious, but they moved fast. On March 14, 2015, one day before the documentary finale, agents stormed Robert's New Orleans hotel room. They found him in the bathroom, poetic justice, with $42,000 cash, a rubber mask, fake IDs, and a loaded gun. He was ready to run again, maybe become Dorothy permanently. This time, Los Angeles prosecutors charged him with Susan Berman's murder. The evidence was overwhelming: the matching handwriting, the bathroom confession, the timing of her death. The trial took years to start because Robert kept having medical emergencies whenever court dates approached. Some were real, some were suspicious, all were convenient. When the trial finally began in 2020, prosecutors laid out their case like a horror movie. They showed how Robert killed Susan because she knew what happened to Kathie. They played the bathroom confession over and over. They brought in witnesses who testified about Kathie's fear, Susan's plans to talk to police, Morris's bad luck of living next door to a killer. The defense tried everything. They said Robert had autism, that his confession was meaningless rambling, that you can't trust a hot mic recording. But the most shocking moment came when Robert himself decided to testify. Against all legal advice, the 78-year-old took the stand and basically destroyed his own case. For 3 days, prosecutors grilled him. He contradicted himself constantly. He claimed he couldn't remember, saying he killed them all, despite the crystal-clear recording. When asked if he was lying about finding Susan's body, he actually said, "No, I did not knowingly lie." Knowingly. Even his denials sounded like confessions. On September 17, 2021, the jury took just 7 hours to convict him. Robert Durst, the billionaire who thought money made him untouchable, was guilty of first-degree murder. Susan Berman's family cried. Kathie's sisters hugged. Morris Black's relatives stayed silent, perhaps still processing how their loved one became collateral damage in a rich man's killing spree. But the story wasn't over. Weeks after the conviction, New York prosecutors charged Robert with Kathie's murder. They'd been building their case for years, waiting for this moment. Even without a body, they felt confident they could prove Robert killed his wife back in 1982. The trial was set for 2022. Robert never made it to that trial. On January 10, 2022, he died in a California prison hospital. Cardiac arrest, they said. He was 78, spending his final moments not in a Manhattan penthouse, but in a prison medical ward. The man who inherited millions died in custody as inmate number BH6902. His death left questions that will never be answered. Were there other victims? How many times did his money save him from justice? Why did he agree to that documentary? Maybe he wanted to be caught. Maybe his ego convinced him he could talk his way out of anything. Maybe he just forgot that microphones don't stop recording when you walk away. The Durst family fortune survived him. His brother Douglas runs the company, still building skyscrapers, still making millions. They don't talk about Robert. In their towers that scrape the New York sky, his name is never mentioned. He's the billionaire black sheep who proved that money can buy you time, but not forever. The Jinx, the documentary that caught him, became a phenomenon. Law schools study it. Police academies use it for training. It showed how killers often can't resist talking about their crimes, how ego can override intelligence, how a hot mic can deliver the justice that millions of dollars tried to prevent. In the end, Robert Durst's legacy is a warning. He had everything: money, power, privilege, and he threw it all away because he couldn't stop killing people who got in his way. He spent 40 years running from justice, buying his freedom, silencing witnesses. But in a hotel bathroom, talking to himself, he spoke the truth that everyone already knew. He killed them all, of course. And finally, after decades of wealth protecting him like armor, those 5 words brought him down. The billionaire who got away with murder for so long died in a prison hospital, proving that sometimes, even if it takes 40 years, justice finds a way. Even for the rich, even for the privileged, even for Robert Durst. The young woman who vanished in 1982, the friend executed in 2000, the neighbor dismembered in 2001. They never got to see him convicted. But their stories, told through evidence and testimony and one accidental confession, finally put their killer where he belonged. Behind bars, where all his money meant nothing, where his name meant only shame, where he died not as a billionaire but as a prisoner who talked too much in a bathroom.